This podcast is sponsored by Bigger Brains, online training that won't bore you to tears. Expand the minds of your workforce at getbiggerbrains.com.
Welcome to Permission to Speak, the video blog and podcast that loiters at the intersection of leaders who want their people to speak up, technology that facilitates connections, and results that serve our higher purpose. Now, here's your host, Kelly Vandever.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. This is Kelly Vandever, and my special guest today is Sandy Weaver. Sandy believes that happiness is job one, and not just in your personal life, but in business too. When people feel better about themselves and are happy, they contribute more, which makes for better business outcomes. Sandy is an award-winning author of 2 books, the original MBA, Succeed in Business Using Mom's Best Advice. Get it? MBA, Mom's Best Advice. And her other book is The Happiness Recipe. She is also a speaker, blogger, podcaster, and motivator. Throughout her life, people have sought out Sandy for her advice, ability to listen, and caring heart. Now she works with companies to increase morale, pump up productivity, and boost the bottom line through the science of happiness. When not writing about happiness, you can find Sandy using her background as a major market radio personality to produce audiobooks and online learning courses, or judging an AKC dog show, or walking along the Chattahoochee River with her 2 Siberian Huskies, Henley and Duffy. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the podcast, Sandy.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you for having me on your most excellent podcast. I'm very honored to be here.
Thank you. All right. As you know, we start with a couple of quirky questions to get to know our guest a little better first. So, my first quirky question is, what is your favorite possession?
My favorite possession. I'm not going to say that my dogs are possessions, because even though legally they are, really they're kind of members of my family. So you might be looking at one of my favorite possessions behind me, the quilt that's on the wall. My Grandma Weaver made that quilt, and she and Grandpa Weaver have been gone for a long time. And when I look at it, I'm taken right back to their farmhouse in western Oklahoma, because I can see little swatches of fabric from dresses that she made for herself and shirts that she made for Grandpa Weaver. And maybe sometimes there was a pot holder that had some of that pink fabric on it, or the blue fabric with the tiny little yellow flowers was an apron that I particularly liked, and she would let me put on when I was helping her in the kitchen. So I just love having that. It's priceless to me.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. And since we're, for the folks that are watching this interview, above the quilt, there's something a little interesting too.
Some ribbons. My dogs and I have had a lot of fun. Yeah. I got my first Siberian Husky in, let's just say a long time ago, a very long time ago. I was 19 when I got him, and I didn't know anything about raising a puppy. And I made every mistake in the book with Alex. And by the time he was about 7 months old, he was a total heathen. And it wasn't his fault. It was my fault. I didn't contain him. I didn't train him. I just thought he was cute, and I let him get away with everything. And the next thing you know, he was getting away with everything. So I asked my veterinarian how, if she could introduce me to people that actually know how to live with Siberian Huskies, because I was failing. And I didn't want to be that person who just had a difficult puppy and dumped him off at the pound. Really, I believe that when you make a commitment to a person or to a being, you've made a commitment. So she introduced me to the members of the Greater Washington, D.C. Siberian Husky Club. I was living in the D.C. area at the time. And man, the dog show bug bit me hard. So that's how I've come to be an AKC dog show judge. I judge conformation, but that's not the only games I've played with my dogs. I've got conformation champions and obedience champions and agility champions and barn hunt champions and pack hiking champions. And I even have currently living with a therapy dog. He likes to go visit kids at children's hospitals and elementary schools.
That is so cool. When you and Sandy and I've known each other for several years now, and just the thing it's Henley, right? That's the
Henley's the therapy dog. Yes.
Yeah, when you decided to help him be a therapy dog, I thought that was just the coolest thing.
Well, he was born for it. I really didn't have to do any training at all. You have to pass a test. but there was no training. I mean, all I had to do was say, okay, you have to walk really nicely on leash beside me. You can't pull on your leash. Well, he doesn't anyway. And then, the rest of it is just, what is his basic personality? Is he bomb-proof? Can you drop something loud and clangy behind him without him startling and running away? Can a stranger come up to him and touch him, maybe even in uncomfortable ways, and he's okay with it? Can he meet another dog and be polite? It's a personality test to be a therapy dog. It's really not training. And he was born to make people happy. He truly was.
Well, how great that you two found each other. The happiness vibe thing.
Yeah, he's my happiness dog. Not taking anything away from Duffy. She's fun and the smartest dog and the best worker I ever had, and it probably ever will have. But not every dog is born to be a therapy dog, and Duffy was not. So it's okay.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Now, for our second quirky question, tell us something surprising about yourself that most people don't know.
Most people do not know that I have flown in a Blue Angel jet.
That is so cool. When was this? I didn't know that.
Yeah. See, you didn't even know that. I thought you didn't know that one. I thought, let me pick one that Kelly doesn't know. I worked on the radio for many, many, many years. That was my adult career. And it was probably about 35 years that I did it. And somewhere right around 1991 or so, at the Andrews Air Force Base Air Show that they have every year, the Blue Angels were there. Might have been 92. It was one of those 2 years. But the Blue Angels were there. And I was working at WMZQ, the country music station in Washington, D.C. Yes, George Bush's radio station. You could hear when the Secret Service called up to make a request for the president. Man, you could hear it. You could hear the earpieces. You could hear the somber dark suits. You could hear the sidearms. Yeah, you could hear it all. And yes, we did play the president's favorite songs. Thank you. So somebody from the Blue Angels came to the radio station and said, is there anybody who wants to do a check ride? And my hand went up so fast. And everybody looked at me like I had three heads. They couldn't believe I was actually going to do it. But my dad was career military. And anytime there was an air show near us, we were there watching. And the Blue Angels and all of those amazing precision flying teams were just fascinating to me. So to be able to ride in one of the Blue Jets and wear a Blue Angels uniform, flight suit, they gave me a 42 long, Kelly. I'm 5'4". They gave me a 42 long and made me eat and drink a carbonated soda before they took me up. Do you think they had a diabolical scheme?
Yes, I think they did.
It worked. We don't have to go any further than that. It worked. But it's still probably the best hour of my life. Flying in a box over the Patuxent River Naval Station. And he even let me believe that I did snap rolls. I got to have the yoke, but I'm sure that he was taking all the other control surfaces.
So you were doing the loop-de-looped, and I don't even know what these things are called. And I was in the military, but I never was in aviation. So
well, it's okay. We did, because Blue Angels are a Navy outfit. We did the carrier takeoff and the carrier landing, though they didn't have a snag hook for us.
Right.
But it was you take off really fast. Let me get my hand in the shot. Really fast, and then you go straight up. We pulled almost 5 Gs.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was because I had a screen in front of me. I could see what we were doing. I could see how fast we were going. I could see how many Gs we were pulling. And he took me for the world's most amazing roller coaster ride. It was fun.
Very
it was
cool.
So much fun. I was green for the whole day afterwards.
Well, I'm a little green with envy, but
someday you too, Kelly. Someday you too.
Well, I don't know if it's interesting, but I actually did the information security inspection on the Blue Angels when I was an ensign in the Navy. So it was after one of the big horrible spy cases, and there was a required mandatory cross inspection across different commands, but they never offered to take me up in a plane.
Well, that might have been maybe they might have thought that would be give the bad impression. It might give a little conflict of interest kind of a look to it. Kelly, nudge, nudge, nudge. We'll take you up if you'll, make us look good.
Good point. I had never thought of it that way. All right. Very cool. And now for something a little more serious. So what's an innovation or a change that you've made in the last 6 months that went way better than you thought it would?
Oh, wow. Can I stretch back a little farther than 6 months, but it's still in the past year? Okay.
Yeah.
My husband and I, well, I guess he's my husband now, and I were married for 29 years and 11 months when one night after dinner, he said he didn't want to be married anymore. And that came out of the oblivious to me, not out of the blue, out of the oblivious, because I thought things were fine. And clearly I was not paying enough attention. And I really thought that it had the potential to be a really hard chapter in my life. And yet when I moved out into my own space, I realized how many eggshells I'd been walking on and how nice it felt not to walk on eggshells anymore. And so coming back into who I am without bending for anybody else, without having to worry about, what are we going to do for dinner? I mean, I can choose what I'm going to do for dinner. I know what the dogs are having for dinner. I don't have to worry about anybody else. It's really kind of freeing. And is it a really major life change? Yes. But it's gone much better than I thought it was going to.
Well,
and it just continues to get better every day.
Well, and I'm so glad to hear that, because I love you, and I want good things for you.
Thank you, Kelly. And you know that in just about maybe about a week and a half, I should be a motorcycle rider.
Which is...
So you and me, babe.
That's
when
right.
I get good enough and you'll be willing to be seen with me on the road, I would love to go riding with you.
That's right. That's one of the things that you put off, was a desire to ride a motorcycle, and
Yep.
Now I've drag you along, me and June Klein and
Yep.
I. That's better English.
That's
but
right.
Okay.
Yep. That was one thing my husband never wanted me to do, and we didn't ever tell each other we couldn't do something, but we respected the other one's fears. And so out of respect for his fears, I never pursued riding a motorcycle, but I have wanted to ride a motorcycle for as long as I can remember. And so school is next week.
Yay!
Yay!
I remember when you told us that your husband had asked for a divorce, and then you said, "But now, Kelly, I can ride," and you cheered
Yep.
me up that day because I'm like, "Yeah, you can ride with us now."
Yeah, it's like silver lining. The very first night, and not to get into too much detail here, but the very first night, I didn't sleep very well. So in one of the, wandering around the house kind of trips, I noticed in the bathroom that the toilet paper was hanging in my not preferred position. And I started laughing because I realized that henceforth and forevermore, the toilet paper would always be hanging correctly in my house. And that's the moment that I knew it was going to be okay.
Nice.
And that was within probably 12 hours of his announcement.
Wow. You're a very strong woman. I have a ton of respect for you, Sandy.
Well, thank you. I have 52 happiness tools, and I've put them all to use in the last 8 months. That's for sure.
Well, and that's a really good point. I mean, happiness has been the thing that you studied,
Right.
But you, obviously, with a huge life change like this, one that you did not request,
Right.
you really have had the challenge of seeing, can you live this life of happiness and really believe in a very visceral way what it is that you stand for, and you have, and you do.
And
So.
the nice thing was, I've been teaching these happiness tools for probably 2 years before my marriage broke up. And, I knew they worked because there are things that innately I used my whole life. And then other things I researched and said, oh, really? 20 minutes outside. You don't even have to be doing anything, but 20 minutes in nature makes you happier. Okay. And so that's one of the happiness tools. But I just kind of innately knew the rest of them because I hit the parent Powerball lottery with my parents. I landed in a great house, 2 people who knew how to teach their children to create happiness. And so I've grown up doing it. And taking those tools and taking those skills and putting them to use at probably the lowest point of my adult life was very empowering. And when I present to an audience or teach a workshop, it makes me feel even that much more confident that I know that I'm helping people. I know this is valuable information. And if only one person in the audience takes it and changes his or her life with it, home run. Maybe grand slam.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
So your speech is entitled Happiness is Job One, Empower Your People, Boosting Morale, Productivity, and the Bottom Line. So how did you get interested in this topic? I mean, you said your parents raised you that way. So, but what was the path that led you here?
It's a long and convoluted path. The first book that I wrote, which you referenced, thank you, the original MBA, was a book that I was initially just writing for my granddaughters. My mom died of metastatic breast cancer, when my did I say my granddaughters? I don't even have any children. My nieces.
Your mother's grandchildren. Yeah.
My mother's grandchildren. Yes, my nieces were very young when mom passed away. And so they didn't get a chance to learn from her. And that was a real shame because she was a fabulous teacher. She was not a school teacher. She was a fabulous child teacher and a fabulous adult raiser. She did a great job with both of my brothers and with me, I think. I mean, I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm patting my mom on the back. And so I thought, well, mom's wisdom needs to be cataloged and given to these girls so that they can grow up knowing what I knew, even if they have to learn it in a different way. And I started trying to write the book and started trying to write the book and started trying to write the book. And I just didn't know how to write a book. And so finally, one year at Christmas, I gave my nieces, as part of their Christmas present, a written promise that the next Christmas they would get a copy of the book. That's how you write a book, let me tell you. You now have, it's T-1 year. Go.
Oh, that's
so
perfect.
I got serious and I worked with a book coach who calls herself the author's midwife. She helps get the book out of you. And by June, I had my first rough draft. And by August, I was holding my first book in my hand.
Wow.
So, yeah. And that was the impetus to write the book. And then I started thinking about, well, I've got all this wisdom and there's, my nieces can use it. And I think probably a lot of other people can use it too, because the more I studied the idea of positive psychology, which is actually a very new field, and the more I studied the concepts of neuroplasticity, and the more I studied corporate communications or just business kind of communication, interpersonal communication, the more I studied all of those, I realized that what happens a lot is just a misperception. And a misperception can tank an organization, or it can take an organization and raise it to its ultimate heights if the misperception never happens. So I thought, well, maybe I should look into this. And, you and I know each other from NSA Georgia, which is the organization that speaks, not the NSA that listens.
That's right.
They're the one that speaks. National Speakers Association, the Georgia chapter. And I'd been going to meetings and paying attention and loving what I was hearing. And I thought, why don't I just take this book and these tools and this skill set and craft it in such a way that workshops can help people, seminars can help people, keynote presentations can motivate people. So that's what I did.
Very cool. Now, so in the stuff that you've studied, how did it get so that workplaces became divorced from this idea of happiness or good feelings for the people inside the organization? Is there something you've studied, or how do we get there to this kind of state we are in today?
We get there, and it's probably been the entire time that industrialized companies have happened. We've gone from subsistence farming in this country, to amazing organizations, associations, and corporations that just do phenomenal things and have a phenomenal structure. But the way that the structure is built, and I'm not saying it's wrong because I truly think it's right, the way that the structure is built actually engenders a feeling of people as tools, or as people as a means to an end. And people are not a means to an end, and they don't want to be treated as a means to an end. So if you treat your people as just the tool that you're going to use to get to the sales goal or to get to the production goal, then what you're going to have is a turnover problem. You're going to start with a morale problem, and then you're going to have a turnover problem, and that's a very expensive problem for companies. So that's kind of how we got there. An awful lot of people not necessarily thinking of their people as tools, but not thinking of their people as individuals and people worth growing. The best leaders know that. The best leaders know that it's all about empowering your people to take the tasks that they have responsibility for, and instead of just giving them the responsibility, giving them the ownership. That seems like a small tweak, but it's a huge difference in the way the employee feels about the work they're doing.
Very cool. Very cool. So I guess I'm going to shift gears a little bit, because I know you talked already about you have 52 tools.
Does that sound like a newsletter?
It sounds like a weekly kind of thing, actually.
It is a newsletter. Yes, it is.
But as far as these tools and happiness and the workplace, are there tools that help people feel better at the workplace so that they can feel more empowered? And the name of the podcast is Permission to Speak. We want to help people feel like they can speak up and contribute more and be more engaged. So are there some of those tools that work?
Actually, most of them do. Not all of them, but most of them will get to that permission to speak kind of a feeling where communication is important. Communication is really vital to making an organization successful. If the communication breaks down, then everything is gone. And I have to tell you, from working in radio for so many years, radio is a communication business. And without exception, every single station I worked at had internal communication issues. Every single one. It was crazy. I mean, to the point that we all laughed about it. We just laughed. There was a couple of times where a really inspired program director made his piece of the organization work really well. But for the most, and then one time I had a really inspired general manager, and that was phenomenal. When you have somebody who really gets it about communication and about having people take ownership of their position, not just responsibility. But yeah, a lot of times people go to MSU. Have you heard that phrase before?
I don't think so. Well, there's Missouri State University or something, right?
There is Missouri State University, and that is not what I'm talking about. Going to MSU, when I talk about it, means making stuff up. We all do it. We all do it. It's how we, inside our own heads, make sense of the world.
Well,
something. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and when we do it, we usually go to the dark place, don't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm walking in one morning and I say good morning to Darlene, and Darlene grunts at me. And I start thinking, what did I do to Darlene? I didn't do anything to Darlene. Why is Darlene mad at me? Darlene wants to take my job. Darlene's trying to get me fired. We just horribilize things because that's the way our brains are hardwired. And I'll step back for just a moment. And this is actually, brain technology. There's a little piece of our brain that is the primitive brain. It's the part that keeps everything running. And it is the part that has the fight or flight mode in it. And it is the part that takes over when we think we're in danger. And the reason it takes over so quickly and so easily and goes to the negative is because if cavemen and cavewomen were walking alongside the river and they heard a twig snap behind them, they better land in a cave or up a tall tree really fast, or they were going to become saber-toothed tiger's dinner. So that piece of our brain causes us to respond negatively without us even thinking about it. That's where a lot of the negative thoughts come from. And so if we can take those and go, I don't need caveman and cavewoman's thought process anymore. I can just go, it's okay. Then you stop going to MSU. You stop thinking Darlene is after your job or trying to get you fired. And you realize Darlene had too much to drink last night and the poor woman is hungover. All she can do is show up for work and grunt, feel sorry for her. And so one of the things that we play with is making stories up. If you're going to make up a story that serves you or that entertains you. So Darlene grunts, and maybe the story that you make up in your head is that she had too much to drink last night and she's hungover. And that helps you feel sorry for her because, without exception, we've all been in that spot where we just don't feel good the next day. and so it's like, okay, I got it. I can sympathize. I can empathize. And then you just go on with your day and it doesn't bother you. It rolls right off your back and you hope Darlene feels better later in the day. Or you can make up a story that makes you laugh. She grunted at you because in secret truth, Darlene is really not human. She's a shape-shifting pig. And she forgot to use her human voice. She used her oinking voice. Just make up stuff because you're going to do it anyway. Make up something that either makes you laugh if you need a laugh or that helps you feel compassion towards the other person.
Nice.
And that goes a long way to helping reduce the friction, especially that you see in people who have high stress jobs or jobs where they're dealing with the public and the public isn't always very nice and they're high turnover position. If you can teach these people to make up things about each other, the person in the next cubicle is chewing their gum loudly because they're a shape-shifting donkey in real life. Entertain yourself.
Right.
Make stuff up, but make it up in a positive way, not a negative way. And when you find yourself making stuff up in a negative way, tell the caveman or cavewoman to get out of your head. Just make them go away.
Very good. Very good. Well, are there one or two other of these tools you can share with us today so that that person that's working in that corporate environment right now can have these tools to help make their day get happier?
Well, everybody's day is going to be better, and your day will be better no matter what you're dealing with if you can manage to find at least 5 minutes to meditate. And I know a lot of people hear meditation, they're like, yeah, she wants me to sit cross-legged on the floor with my eyes closed going, No, it doesn't matter. My version of meditation is taking my dogs for a walk down by the river because I can just zone out. It's whatever helps you zone out for about 5 minutes and make those voices in your head be quiet. Make them be quiet. Settle yourself down. You can pay attention to your breathing. Just let it go in and out. And if you're not really sure what to do while you're meditating, a guided meditation is really good because you'll listen to somebody's voice and they're just talking very quietly and they're taking you on a little trip and helping you paint a movie inside your head. And that little movie or that little trip is going to reinforce something positive about your life and let you let go of, for just those few minutes, the negative things. So a guided meditation for 5 minutes. If you're having a bad minute at work, take 5. Seriously. Put on your earbuds, put on your headphones, put on a guided meditation, and just sit there and be quiet. You can look like you're working, but what you're really doing is you're recharging. You're helping yourself get a little clearer and a little less stressed about things. 5 minutes, take it for yourself, is an amazing gift that you can give yourself. As is forgiveness. My favorite, I think my favorite tool is, I say it's my favorite tool, and then I think about the other tools, but this one is so powerful that it works in every aspect of your life, and it's forgiveness. It is the simple act of forgiving. Forgiveness has nothing to do with the person that you forgive. It has nothing to do with the person that you forgive. There is a person on this planet who thinks that I am a waste of good air. And it's okay. That's her opinion of me. Not a problem. I can't change it. I can argue with it and it just makes me look stupid and it makes me feel bad, or I can just let it go. I can say, she's kind of broken. I don't know what happened to make her such a broken and hateful person, but I can't fix her. That's not within my power. And so the best thing I can do is just forgive her, feel bad for her, and ignore her. So as much as possible, that's what I do. And that works in every aspect of your life. It doesn't matter what's happened to you in your life. It doesn't. Many of us have had very bad things happen. And to be able to forgive the fact that it happened and let it go is amazing. And it lifts your spirits. If you can make a bad event in your past okay by forgiving yourself, your part in it, or forgiving the person who did it to you. And what I think of, and this really is true, I think that every person on this planet does the very best they can do in every moment. Sometimes the very best is not really good, but it's still the very best they could do in that moment. And if you happen to collide with somebody who was doing something very bad, forgive them. Just hold in your heart that they were doing the best they could do and forgive them. It has nothing to do with them. You are not giving them a gift. You are giving you a gift, the gift of being able to let it go. And what I say is acid corrodes the vessel that tries to hold it, right? If you put acid into a vessel, eventually the acid is going to get out. Guess what the vessel is and guess what the acid is in this particular story. It's the anger, it's the resentment, it's the fear, it's all of those bad feelings. If you bottle them up inside you and choose not to forgive situations or people, you're not hurting those other people. I mean, I could hate this person who hates me. I could hate her right back. And it would feel really good. And I would have righteous indignation because I know she's wrong about me. And dang it. But it doesn't hurt her. As a matter of fact, she probably would be happy that I was making her so upset. So I don't want to give her that gift either, do I?
Right.
I want to give myself the gift of just letting it go. Just let it go. And that works if you have a difficult coworker, let them go. If you need to be moved to the other end of the building to just not have to think about that person, ask to be moved. But try to let it go. Make up a story about them. Go back to MSU, make up a story like I did about my person. She's very broken. I don't know what broke her. I can't fix her. Therefore, I'm just blessing her and letting her go.
So have you gotten to that point with your husband?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I do. I do believe he was doing the very best he could do, and it just wasn't very good. And so it's okay. I've also always said two things. I've always believed that when women complain about the other woman and how the other woman stole their man, they're really targeting their anger at the wrong person, because it wasn't the other woman who made those vows in front of God and your family and everybody in the congregation. It was not the other woman who made those vows. So somebody broke a promise, and it wasn't her. She wasn't part of it. So I've always believed that, and it was interesting to have to walk that talk. And it still feels very organic. I still believe it. It wasn't her fault. Could she have done better? Yes. But I still think she was doing the best she could do in those circumstances, as I believe my husband was. It wasn't very good, but it's, what he did. So there we go. And the other thing I've always believed is that till death do us part thing worked really well when we got married when we were 15 and we died when we were 30 or 35. I think 30 years is a very good long time to spend with somebody. And we had a lot of really good years. And the fact that it didn't last forever, it's not a fairy tale. It's life.
Yeah.
Moving on now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you definitely walk your talk, and that's very admirable. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All righty. So we've talked about some of the tools that individuals can use. So what role does a leader play in helping create the kind of atmosphere at a workplace where happiness can thrive? And why should a leader even care about happiness?
Well, let's see. Does the leader want to succeed? There you go. I want to tell you about the man who was Fortune magazine's #1 top leader in the world in a poll they did. His name is Theo Epstein, and he was #1 on the list of Fortune's, top world leaders. The top 5 were, let's see, it was Theo Epstein, Jack Ma, Pope Francis, Melinda Gates, and Jeff Bezos. So who the heck is Theo Epstein? I didn't know. I had to look him up. But when you're telling me he's the world's greatest leader, I want to know why. So I looked into it. He took the Boston Red Sox to a World Series. That's pretty cool. But that's no big deal. They'd done it before, right? Red Sox, been in the World Series before. Then he moved over to the Chicago Cubs, and he took them to the World Series. And he told his entire training staff and the entire top management of the organization in 2012 that within 5 years, the Chicago Cubs were going to be World Series leaders, World Series winners. And they'd never won the World Series before, ever in the history of the franchise. But he knew he could do it. And he told his scouts that in addition to the regular baseball stats that they looked at all the time and that they reported back to the team on, he wanted to know about the person. He wanted to know what they did in adversity on the field, what they did in their life in adversity off the field, how they treated people when nobody else was watching. He wanted to know those kind of things about the people that he would eventually bring onto the team. And he made it a point to only bring on people that he would admire if they were his leader. He wanted that kind of person.
Get out.
Nope. And so when he focused on that, in 5 years, the Chicago Cubs won the World Series. And that goes back to caring about your people, not as a means to achieve your goal. Because he wanted people that he could develop into leaders or that already were leaders. Because when you have a whole locker room full of leaders, if one gets down, the rest are going to pick them up. When they're having a bad day, everybody's going to know what to do to feel better and to behave better and to turn that bad day around and win next time. You're not going to win every game, but you can win a lot of them. And the Chicago Cubs certainly did. He didn't want people who just had great stats and were going to be a tool in his organization. He wanted leaders in his organization. So that's what he focused on. And I think if if a leader can really get clear about the kind of person that you want to have around you, that is an amazing step towards productivity and towards becoming the kind of cohesive organization that you want. And another thing is, have you ever had the experience of walking into a room and you know that you've just walked into an argument?
Yes.
You didn't see it, you didn't hear it, but you can feel it. That is, I call that tone. It's kind of a negative emotion. And so leaders always need to look at the tone that they're giving off. If you asked your people, are you Cinderella, or are you Eeyore, or are you the big bad wolf? What are they going to say? Now, those are all different leadership styles. And leadership style is completely up to you. Your leadership style works, but you have to know you've got to have the right people in place to take your leadership style. For instance, I work fabulously when I worked for somebody else. I worked fabulously for somebody who's real collaborative and who gives ownership, because I don't want to just be told to do something. I want to know how it fits in the organization, what piece of the puzzle it is. And I want to know that if I need to paint a corner, it's okay to make it fit better. And I need to know that if I need to take ownership of this puzzle piece over here that nobody seems to care about, that I can take this puzzle piece and add it to my puzzle piece too. That's the kind of leader that I do well on. I don't do well under a leader that wants to just bark orders. But some people do. Some people work really well under strong deadlines and strong management. You got to know the people that you have, and you have to know or adapt your style to fit them.
Interesting. So many questions going through my mind right now. Well, let me take a step back and talk about, what was the guy in charge of the Cubs again? What was his name?
His name is Theo Epstein.
Theo. So what if somebody's listening to this and they heard what I just heard, that he was looking for people that he could admire if they were his leader. And what if that is amazing. But what if you say to yourself, I don't know that I'm that person? How do you, are these tools, will they also help that person to become somebody that other people can admire?
So just to make sure I'm clear on what you're asking, we have a leader who knows that he doesn't really want to follow any other leaders?
Well, no, just an employee say, so if I was in the scope of Theo's consideration, I'm not a great baseball player, but if I were being considered, thank you, Sandy. What if we go, I don't know if I'm that person that you can admire. Do these happiness tools, do they help get us to a place where we are somebody that can admire? I don't know if that's a fair question. So
it is a fair question. It's a very good question. And what I would say to that person is, look at how you're treated and how that makes you feel. Are you in the right place? I finished a workshop, and a woman came up to me afterwards in tears because she knew, based on a couple of the exercises that we did, that she was not in the right place. She didn't feel like she was in the wrong company. She felt like she was in the wrong job in that company. So I took her back in the back and we had a little conversation, and indeed she was in the wrong job. And so then I went and talked to her immediate manager and kind of felt out what he felt about what she was doing and her job performance. And he really felt like she was floundering. And I said, what if she's just kind of in the wrong place? And what if she would fit better over here? And as soon as he plugged her in over there, I got this fabulous letter from him saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, because we loved having her. She just wasn't getting it done right there. So it's like, okay, pick up and move. And now they've got a fabulous employee they don't have to pay unemployment for. They don't have to, they just backfilled where she was, and where she was a much more starter position. She's much more valuable to the company now. Examine what you're doing and see whether it is what you want to be doing. And in addition, examine where you are and see if it's where you want to be. If the answer to both of those is yes, you're great. And you can become that person. You can become the leadership just by kind of stepping forward and being a little bit more positive and taking ownership of your job, as long as you're in a place where your boss will let you do that. If not, probably you're not going to be real happy there. If the answer to either one or both is no, if the answer to both is no, it's time to go job hunting.
Yeah.
But if the answer to one or the other is no, then figure out if there's something you can do about it. Because once you get into problem solving mode, it's harder to be upset about the problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for the solution and you're looking and moving in a positive direction, then that's going to help you feel better about what you're doing anyway. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah. Nice. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very much. And it was a convoluted question, but it was a nice answer. Thank
It was
you.
a good question, though. It really was.
All right. Well, let's go back to the leadership side of the equation. Are there a couple of are there mistakes that leaders make that work against them, that they think that they're doing the right thing, but it actually is not getting them the kind of results that they want?
I'm going to answer your question with my favorite dog training tip. Because it works great with employees. It works great with spouses. Okay, maybe not so much with my spouse, but it works great. And it works great with wayward children. Catch them doing something right and praise them. Especially if you have an employee that kind of gets under your skin, irks you just a little bit. You just never feel like they're doing things right. You never feel like they're getting it right. Guess what? They know that's how you feel. They may not know it on a conscious level, but they feel it. Every time they have an interaction with you, they dread the interaction because they feel your disappointment and your disapproval. So don't let them feel that. Instead, catch them doing something right and praise them. Make sure that they know that you really appreciate how they did this or that they did that, and they will work their little fannies off to win your approval again and again and again. That is the best leadership skill that I can give you. Well, okay, that and listening and forgiving. And okay, I've got a few others, but that one is very powerful and it works very quickly, actually. That one works very quickly, especially if you can make your praise a little bit public. You don't have to make it, you don't have to scream it from the rooftop. But if you can make sure that a couple of other people overhear you praising this problem employee because they did something right, then everybody's going to want to work for your approval.
Good. Okay. Are there other things that leaders aren't doing, maybe that they could be doing? Some other techniques that will help people feel more confident and comfortable speaking up and giving their best?
I absolutely love the concept of a true brainstorming session. And a true brainstorming session means that there's no negativity allowed. Brainstorming is where you just sit and everybody's allowed to throw out whatever stupid idea they have or stupid solution they have. And truly, some of them can be mind-bogglingly stupid. And it's okay, because sometimes the dumb ones trigger a great thought in somebody else. When you put a whole bunch of great minds together, or even mediocre minds together, you end up coming up with really good ideas because everybody's playing off of everybody else. And if the energy stays positive, again, nobody's allowed to say, well, that'll never work.
Right.
Because, of course, some of the ideas will never work, but it's okay because, even 100 times the light bulb didn't work either until it did, right? If you keep trying and you keep just throwing these ideas out, something's going to stick. It's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Most of it's going to slink down on the floor. Okay, but celebrate the few things that stay up on the wall. So really true brainstorming sessions when you have a problem that needs solving, or when you have, say you're in a creative environment and people just throw creative ideas around. There's no bad idea. Nike Just Do It came from a great brainstorming session. It did not come from one person's head. And just like Kelly, you and I know that as speakers, we are never the smartest person in the room. We are there to produce thoughts in people's heads that might cause them to change the way they think or the way that they do something. We're never the smartest person in the room. The boss is not the smartest person in the building either, and doesn't have to be. So if you take that pressure of feeling like you have to have all the answers and you have to have all the solutions and you have to be the leader, if you take that pressure off of you and just collaborate, you're going to come out accomplishing so much more. You will probably end your workday feeling a lot better too about yourself and about your team.
Very good. Very good. All righty. So you shared with me a story about a client that you worked with, a veterinarian, I believe. Would you mind sharing that story? What was going on in that environment when you got involved?
The veterinarian shared with me that she was probably going to have to fire her very best veterinary technician because this particular veterinary technician was toxic. she was a very, like a classic toxic employee. She liked to stir the pot. She liked to put one person against the other, pit one person against the other, and watch the turmoil that it created. She liked to tell stories about this person to this person, and then tell opposite stories to this person about this person, and really caused a lot of problems. But she was this veterinarian's very best technician, technically, and with the clients. And that's really hard to get. A technician usually is in the business of veterinary medicine because they love animals and they want to help animals, and they're not necessarily people. Okay. They're not necessarily a people person.
Right.
But this one was not only great with, or is not only great with animals, but she's also great with people. So this veterinarian did not really want to fire her, but she could not put up with the toxicity anymore. So I was developing really in the developmental stages of a workshop at that point for veterinary offices and veterinary associations, and thought, well, how about if I just come to your clinic and do this kind of and see what it does? And over a year later, not only has that tech stopped being toxic, most of the time, she understands, A, that she's valued, and B, that the reason that she feels compelled to behave that way is because she's very insecure. She's a very insecure person. And so the other people also understand that behavior comes from her insecurity. So instead of trying to poke at her and make her feel even more insecure, they catch her doing something right and praise her for it. And it really works beautifully. It has, matter of fact, I was at that hospital this morning picking up some drugs for one of my dogs, and that technician was one of the ones that helped me.
Very cool. Now, so what did you do in their work environment that made that change?
Yeah, it was a lot about communication, and I used illustrations of clueless owners and how they don't understand what their cat or dog is saying. They're misunderstanding, like the old lady who's sitting there in the waiting room petting her cat, and the cat's ears are flat back, and the pupils are this big, and the tail is swishing wildly back and forth, and the woman is going, "Oh, Kitty is so happy," and all of those are signals from the cat that he's about to kill somebody. Those are not happy signals from the cat. And the guy is sitting across the room, and he's got his Rottweiler. He's holding him by the collar as tight as he can, and everything the Rottweiler owns is pointed forward towards that cat. And the man says, "Oh, my dog loves cats." Yeah, not in a nice way. Not in a very nice way. Please hold tightly, sir. They're both misunderstanding their animals, just like quite often we misunderstand each other. Communication problems are rampant. And if you can make them fun, and if you can make fun of them, then you just kind of make them an inside joke. My mother and I had a communication issue. Oh, well, no, I was a brat over a gray suit that she found for me. And she was just thrilled with this gray suit. And in hindsight, was a perfectly beautiful gray suit. And I just said, "Oh, I hate gray," and flounced out of the room in my, perfect 14-year-old self. And I never saw the suit again. And she never bought clothes for me again either. And I really hurt her feelings. And it was a long time before I understood the damage that I'd inflicted. And then she and I made a joke out of it. Whenever we weren't quite connecting on something, I'd say, "Oh, we must have gone gray again." And then we could laugh. When you do things like that, you can laugh about it. And you can do that in an organization too. But I think the most powerful exercise that we did was I had everybody have a list in front of them of each person's name who worked there, just their first name, because there were no, everybody has a different first name. There weren't like 3 Sandys. And everybody got one of those lists, and they took a pen or a pencil in their non-dominant hand. For me, it would be the left because I'm right-handed. In their non-dominant hand, and they wrote down 1 or 2 things about every person on the list, obviously except for themselves, that they appreciate. Something that they admire, something they appreciate, something they wish they were more like. One thing about every single person. And you can, even on a person that you really don't like, you can find one thing that you can admire or wish you were more like. And after the session, I cut up those pieces of paper, and everybody got their own gift bag with all of their own strips of paper in there. And so the problem child got to see what people admired about her. and what people appreciated about her. It made every single person in that building feel like they are heard and seen. And that's so empowering.
Very cool. Very cool. I love that story. I love that story.
Thank you. I do too. I do too. It's a really powerful exercise, and we had a great day. It was a home run.
Very good. Well, I'm going to wrap up the interview in a couple of minutes here, but is there a question you wish I'd ask, or something else that you'd like to share with the leaders and the others that are listening?
So one of the things about happiness tools is happiness is the softest and squishiest of soft skills, really. People say that I'm a happiness expert and they go, okay, what does that mean? It's a happiness expert. Oh, how nice here, But what a lot of people don't understand is that we often pursue happiness, not understanding that we have to manufacture it. We don't just catch happiness. We make happiness. We create our own happiness. And that's what the tools are for, is to help us create happiness. In the research of neuroplasticity and positive psychology, those two fields are very new. Scientists used to believe, or researchers used to believe, that once you were in your late teens or your early 20s, your thought patterns and your behaviors were set in stone. There's no way you can change them. Well, it is true that synapses that fire together wire together. That's very true. That's when a thought happens. You have two little synapses in your brain fire and shoot a chemical message to each other. And when the messengers hit, then a thought happens in your brain. And if that thought happens often enough, the thought becomes a belief. The belief may not serve you. Belief may not even be true. All that is a chemical bridge that's been built. And so now you believe that whatever that thought was is now the truth. There was a point in my childhood where I had quite the prominent nose. And it's just that my nose grew faster than the rest of my face. And so it got remarked on quite a bit. And I thought I probably had the world's most hideous, most awful, most horrible nose. It was horrible. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I finally got over thinking that my nose was awful. And I just thought it was a terrible feature and I should probably just cut it off my face, plastic surgery. It's a nose, kids. It's a nose. But I believed that it was a bad nose because it's a thought that I had a lot. And so I just stopped thinking that thought. And the cool thing about that's another one of the tools that I love, is a mental stop sign. You put up a visual of a stop sign right in front of your face whenever you catch yourself thinking a thought that doesn't serve you. And the thought that my nose was hideous did not serve me. It didn't make me feel good, and it wasn't true. But it was a belief because I'd thought the thought often enough. I'll put that up where people can see it. It was a belief. And the cool thing is, if you think a thought a lot, it becomes a belief. And that's good if the belief serves you. It's not good if the belief doesn't serve you. But if you can stop thinking it, then the chemical trail goes away, and so does the belief. Neuroplasticity is an amazing line of study, because basically what it is you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Right.
So we're in charge of our brains, but we have to become the thought police. But only the thought police for us. You can't be anybody else's thought police. You can't be your spouse's thought police. You can't be your husband's thought police, your children's thought police. You can't be your employee's thought police. You can't be your boss's thought police. You cannot police anybody else's happiness but your own, and anybody else's thoughts but your own. But you can police your own thoughts, and that's how the happiness tools work.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, before we wrap things up here, what have been one or two pleasant surprises on this journey that you've been on regarding happiness and teaching other people about happiness?
Wow. I absolutely love watching light bulbs go off. So when somebody comes up to me after a workshop or after a keynote presentation and they tell me even just one little thing that's going to help them do something differently, or one little insight that they gained, or they want to share a story with me that one of my stories triggered with them, it's life-changing for me. Really, it's life-changing. All I want to do is help people have a better life. And so when somebody can tell me that they did, or they heard something that they're going to take and actually use, you know how powerful that feels, Kelly.
Yeah.
When you can watch somebody's light bulb go off. I love that.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Sandy, if folks are interested in learning more about your happiness recipes, what's the best way for them to reach out or find out more?
My website is happinessisjob1.com, or you can go sandyjweaver.com. Or you can, while you're there, sign up for my little email blast that goes out every Monday. It's happiness quick tip. It's always a very quick read, and it's one new happiness tool every week. That's why there are 52 of them. So it's one new happiness tool every week, and it's a quick read. It's a simple read, and I don't share email addresses with anybody. I don't do those marketing kind of things where everybody uses everybody else's list. If you sign up for my list, you are on my list. I don't share you. I don't sell you. Your email is safe with me. And if you ever want to go bye-bye, just click unsubscribe, and I promise not to cry as far as you know.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much, Sandy, for joining us today and for sharing your stories and these tools that we can use. So appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation, Kelly. I adore spending time with you.
This podcast was brought to you by Bigger Brains, online training that won't bore you to tears. Expand the minds of your workforce at getbiggerbrains.com. Thanks for tuning in to Permission to Speak. If you want to increase collaboration and innovation in your organization, check out more resources available at speakingpractically.com, or give me a call, Kelly Vandever, at 770-597-1108.